Hi everyone, my name is Kirill Chernyshev, and I'm excited to welcome you to the first lesson of our course, which is all about drawing portraits from photographs. Today, we'll start with the basics: how to prepare, what materials to choose, and why the right technique matters. In this course, you'll learn how to accurately capture facial features, work with proportions, lights, and shadows. By the end, you'll be able to create realistic portraits and, most importantly, enjoy the process. Ready? Let's get started. For this lesson, you'll need the following materials. Paper. It's best to use heavier drawing or watercolor paper. Go with letter size or larger. The heavier the paper, the better it will handle shading. In my case, I'm using smooth Bristol paper and a sketch pad. In the US, you'll see paper weight listed in pounds. Something around 90–100 pound works well for drawing, and 140 pound for watercolor. Pencils, a set with different hardness levels. I recommend professional brands like Faber-Castell, Prismacolor, Staedtler, or Koh-i-Noor. These are considered professional pencils, and they are very convenient and pleasant to draw with. You can take sets like mine. The main thing is that they include several hard pencils as well as soft ones. Hard pencils, 2H and 4H, are for layout and construction lines. And soft pencils, 2B, 4B, 6B, are for shading and details. A ruler, metal or clear plastic, for precise lines and grid measurements. Erasers, a standard eraser and a kneaded eraser, also called putty eraser. The standard eraser is for removing grid lines and making serious changes in the drawing. The kneaded eraser will be used to lighten tones or make minor adjustments. And, of course, you'll need a photo, preferably a close-up with good lighting, no distortion, and sharp features. You can also get an eraser pencil, which is very convenient for drawing small details such as highlights, thin hairs, and so on. In other words, for adding details to our drawing. You can also achieve the same result by cutting a regular eraser at a 45-degree angle with a craft knife, so that one side is sharp. With this sharp edge, you can also draw small details or fine lines. I'll show you how to do this in later lessons. I recommend preparing these materials in advance, so it will be comfortable and fast to work later. Another material I want to show you is different types of blending stumps, like these, of different sizes for different areas of the drawing. You can also use soft brushes. Some people use a piece of paper or even their fingers for blending. I would not recommend doing it with your fingers or paper, because fingers can leave oil marks and paper has too much contact with the surface. Blending stumps are, in my opinion, the best option, since they are pointed at the ends and you can easily blend small details around the eyes, for example, or in corners where if you blend with your fingers or paper, you would just smudge a large part of the drawing. That's why I recommend buying blending stumps too. With them, you can create smooth and beautiful shading, and most importantly, more realistic. Since in my drawing technique, we strive for realism. Now I'll show you how it works. Let's take a soft pencil, for example, 4B. And look what we get. Here's the shading. Now let's take a larger stump for a larger area. We get a very smooth transition. The same applies if we use hatching lines. They can also be blended. A very useful tool, so I recommend you get some, because we'll need them in future lessons. Now I'd like to show you the difference between these 4, actually 5 pencils, and why I recommended from the start to buy a set that goes from hard to soft pencils. Here's why. This is a 2H pencil. We shade with it. Now a 2B pencil. A 4B pencil. A 6B pencil. And an 8B. So you can see the difference. And also how they blend. Two B blends lightly.
мягче.
4B is softer.
4В.
6B and 8B. Finally, I'd like to show you the difference between erasers, the standard and the kneaded eraser. Imagine this is our drawing, and we need to lighten the tone a little. Let's say it's drawn with a 4B pencil. Even if we try to do it, the standard eraser creates a very harsh transition. But if we do the same with a kneaded eraser, for example on a 6B drawing, we can reshape it like clay into the form we need and gently lighten the tone. It removes graphite softly. As you can see, it removes, but very delicately. You can also dab it in certain areas. It doesn't erase completely like a standard eraser. The effect is very smooth, while the standard eraser works more harshly. If you need to work on details such as hair or highlights, you can shape the kneaded eraser into a sharp edge and draw the strands of hair. Or use the corner of the eraser in this way, if you need more contrast. Everything depends on the situation, so I recommend having both types. What is a grid? A grid is a series of squares drawn on the photo and on your paper. It helps transfer proportions and positions of features: eyes, nose, mouth, and main lines of the face. The grid is your helper, making your work simpler and more accurate. Without it, it's easy to make mistakes, especially when working with precise proportions. Use a ruler to divide your image into equal parts, and make the lines light so they are easy to erase. This is very important for beginners, since correct placement of proportions is the key to a good result. For practice, choose large portraits with clear features. Neutral expressions work well. Choose photos with even lighting and minimal distortion. Avoid photos with strong shadows or bright highlights that create deep glare. This makes the work more difficult. Ideally, choose a portrait without strong shadows, in a calm pose with a good background. Pay attention to lighting so you understand how light falls and where the shadows are. Work in a calm, well-lit space. Make sure all materials are at hand. Pencils, ruler, eraser, photo. Be patient and accurate. The key is not speed, but precision. Your workspace should be flat for cleaner lines. Note common beginner mistakes. The first mistake beginners make is pressing too hard with the pencil. I want to tell you an important point about drawing with a pencil. If you press too hard, the lines become very dark and thick. This is a problem, since such lines are very difficult to erase or correct, which prevents you from making adjustments and adding small details. This is especially important in portrait drawing, where you need to capture facial features precisely. Excessive pressure can also damage the paper, cutting or tearing it, and then you'll have to start over. It's better to work lightly, with soft strokes, so the lines remain thin and easy to correct. This allows you to gradually add details, fix mistakes, and make the drawing more lively and beautiful. Remember, accuracy and lightness are the key to a good result. The lighter your touch, the better your portrait will look, and it will appear more professional. Another common mistake is rushing through the grid stage or skipping details. Since we use the grid transfer technique, it is very important at this stage to be attentive and not rush. If you transfer or scale incorrectly, or hurry, the drawing may fail and you'll have to start again. So be careful. Follow the advice I'll give in the next lessons, and you will succeed. The most important thing is not to rush. In the next lesson, we will learn how to divide a photo into squares. This is an important step for transferring proportions correctly. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next lesson.